Kasun, now the select series platform is all yours.
Okay, uh, so far, now you have seen two amazing frameworks, right? And okay, so and you learned most of it, the Angular and the React, and Vue.js is, as previously mentioned, it is the latest framework. If we arrange them, so I will go through pretty much basic, and then you can even start writing uh, really good application after this presentation, I hope. So I'm Kasun Vithanage. So this bit about me. I was contributor at Joomla, and I was also a Google Sum of Code mentor. And I am also a member of Mozilla Sri Lanka. And currently I'm working on a startup. In that we actually use Vue.js, and I love open source development. So if you see my GitHub profile, you'll know what I mean. Okay, so uh, let's get moving. So what's Vue.js? So that's the first thing you're gonna ask me. Now you have learned the uh, Angular and React, and now you're gonna learn yet another framework. So let's find it out. So Vue is the progressive JavaScript framework. So before we deep dive into that, let's check what is the history of the Vue.js. So this is the creator of Vue.js. His name is Ivan Yu. He was an employee at Google. So he worked at Creative Labs at Google, and originally he was using AngularJS there. So he was working with various projects with Angular, and after then he worked at Meteor. And while he was actually working at the Google, he felt that Angular is too heavy for simple tasks. Like for example, if you want to change something in a web page, you would still use something like jQuery at that time. So it is the Angular is good. I mean, it is good, but it is heavy. You need to rewrite everything. So that is and it's adding its own ecosystem into your project. So it was a bit heavy. So he thought that what if I extracted the awesome things from Angular and created a small library. So he started Vue.js. The original name was Vue, but it is a common name, right? So he changed this name to Vue. Actually, the both are expelled same. Uh, the Vue is the France. I think it is the translation of Vue in some other language like France, I guess. So then after he developed this Vue.js application, he started working full time on Vue since 2016. So if you quickly take a look, Vue.js is not created by a company. It's created by a single person. Uh, it is it's actively maintained by few group uh, few people. It's not maintained by a company like Facebook or like Facebook. So, but still, these are the companies who are using Vue.js in production. So some of you may have seen uh, very familiar like Google and Apple and GitLab and Zoom, the most loved application for university students. I think you all guys love it. So these are the companies that actually use Vue.js in production. For example, Zoom use it for their web application. What you see in Zoom in the browser, it's written with Vue.js. The GitLab use Vue.js for their front end. So you now see these things are in production already. And Apple also use it for their tutorial, and Google even use it for their classroom project, and BMW uses that for their one of their configurator for cars. So there are a lot of companies, but I only highlighted uh, some of major companies in here. You can find many companies out there. So this is the current status of Vue.js. So there you can see it's a really popular framework among people. It has almost around 180K stars in GitHub. It's not a simple thing. It's a really popular repository in GitHub, and there's an active community around this. So okay. So now the real question: what do you mean by progressive? So far, we didn't. We actually take a look at the frameworks which are meant to build different things. For example, in Angular, you have a completely different ecosystem. So you have everything packed in, like Saji mentioned, batteries included. But Vue is kind of different. It's known as a progressive framework. So progressive means you can incrementally adapt Vue.js into your project. So no need to start all over. If so, assume that you have a really cool website and you want to add some reactivity into it. Okay, Vue.js covered you. You can simply import it from the web and use it there. So okay, so Vue.js only focuses on the view layer. The rest is up to you. You can use whatever you like. There is no forcing on you to use a particular library. You can use anything, and you can architecture it in your own way. There is no limitations on. So that's adds much flexibility. So it is a really cool framework. You'll see. I will go a bit deeper into Vue.js in this presentation. So let's see why we need to learn Vue.js. Vue.js has a easy learning curve and it has a well-defined ecosystem as well. You'll see that things for Vue.js is like really good. It has a really good APIs and they are very stable, and it has best of both worlds. So far you saw some of Angular and some of React, and you'll see Vue.js is pretty much the same, but only taking the good things from it. And it's very simple. So for example, I'm not a dedicated content guy. I work mostly for backends, but Vue.js finds me easy to get into front end world. It's a really great library. So for an example, I will tell you later one thing we achieved with Vue.js at the end, and you will see what I mean by this simplicity and the flexibility. I already told you that it is a very flexible framework, and it has this something called tree shaking. The tree shaking allows you to reduce your application size. So for web applications, it can load very fast if you remove all unused things. And it also has SSR, the server-side rendering, so you can just render it on a server and return the outcome to your browser. And it has a minimal core library around 22 KB. So even more than these things, you can even develop mobile apps with Vue.js and even native application. Uh, okay, so let's talk about features of Vue.js. So Vue.js uses the virtual DOM like React, which we'll see in a second. And with Vue.js adds reactivity uh, in like Angular. So you can have two-way data bindings like in Angular with Vue.js. And it also has props like React. So they are like these things are like good things from one of the best thing from AngularJS. This is one of the best thing from React, and it also has a template syntax which is similar to the Angular, but it is a bit different. You'll see. You can write it your code in HTML, Pug, or any kind of rendering engine, and you can also have animations without importing an or library. and you have something new called computed properties and watchers. Unfortunately, I don't think I will have time for watchers in this presentation, but I'll try to do it. And it has event handling and has a functional API. If you like React, you will love this. So let's get started with the virtual DOM. So you see, this is a typical HTML page, right? So when this loads to your browser, the the browser engine will read this HTML markup and build something called DOM, the document object model. And so if you take a look at the Saji's presentation, he showed something with jQuery. He was manipulating the DOM. So actually manipulating the DOM and accessing it is a really expensive thing. The reason is that your JavaScript engine is a separate component in the browser, and you need to communicate with the browser engine, the rendering engine, to communicate with the DOM. So this is a real expensive thing. If you base on only this DOM, it's going to be really expensive. So they created something called virtual DOM, which is a representation of this HTML markup in a JavaScript object. So you can see that this h1 tag is represented as this. So uh, both React and Vue.js actually doing updates in the virtual DOM, and it will update the actual DOM after things have been really changed. So they can find what have been changed, and uh, and they can easily update it without uh, uh, accessing DOM again and again. So this is a really a good article in here. I will share the presentation. You can read it in here. So let's see Vue in action. Let's get into real action. So I'm using Vue.js 3.0, which was released like 2 or 3 months ago. This enables a new API called Composition API, which I'm not going to talk in this presentation, but it is a really powerful thing. After this presentation, you can just reach this documentation and learn about it. So how we install Vue.js. So you can use a CDN, or you can use npm or yarn to add Vue to your project, and you can even use the CLI of Vue.js, and you can use the White, which is the new kid in the town. It was released with Vue.js 3.0. You can create new apps easily, and it's lightning fast. So this is how you install Vue. That there are other methods also. So this is your first Vue.js application. This is nothing much. It is just displaying a simple message into a HTML page. This is the end result. Let's see it in action. Whether you don't know whether I'm going to lie, right? So you see, it is rendered in here. Okay, so now you can see if we go back to the presentation, you can see now I have created the JavaScript object called app, and it has a member called data. It's a function, and it returns a JavaScript object. It has a message property, and you can see that we are referring the same in here. This is called string text interpolation, which is similar to uh, templates in Angular. So you now referring the application data in here, so you can access the data from this template, and then you can pass this into Vue.js create app method and pass this object, and you can finally mount this application into this dev. So it will be displayed on your web page. So this is the end result. So this will be replaced by Vue.js and add reactivity to it. So now let's make our boring app much more interesting. So now you see we can display messages, but what's the point of that, right? So let's handle some events. So events are like when you click some button, it's known as an event. So if we can actually actually do something more fun, if we can respond to one of these events. So let's see it in action. Okay, in here I have created a simple button. You can see it in here, and I have added something called V on. V on is known as Vue.js uh, directive. So it is like in Angular, and it has we have added this click for that uh, directive, and I have referenced something in here. So if you take a look, you can see I have added something new into my application called methods, and in there I have added the method function called increment, and it is actually incrementing this count by 1. So let's try this. Okay, now you can see when I try to click on this button, it is also incrementing the count. So when you change the data, it will reactively update the DOM as well. So it is pretty cool. You now you what you do is just change the data, and Vue will take care about the rest. It will update the DOM, and it will also keep it in sync with this data properties we already defined. So uh, this called the data binding. In here we have bounded this count variable to something in the DOM. So you can even add many references like count in here. It doesn't matter. It will update all these things which refers this variable. Okay. So okay. So now you can see this. It gets pretty interesting. You can actually write a simple application without doing many things. There you can just write v on directive and handle any event you want. So this is actually allows you to listen for DOM events. They are like input events, and there are much more. You can just listen to them. So actually, this writing this v on is like pretty boring, right? So you can replace v on with at like this. So now you don't have to write v on every time. When you see at, it means you are responding to an event. Okay, so I hope everyone get this. Okay, so now let's take some user input. So one of the cool thing in Angular in Vue.js, in Vue.js is like it has the two-way bindings like AngularJS. So you saw how React does this in the example application. This is how Vue.js do it. So when you want, so I took the same example, the first one, and added a single uh, directive here called vmodel, and let's see how it works. Okay, now you can see when I change the text in the text box, it automatically updates the DOM. So these things are bounded together now. So you see, initially there was a message called this, and it was represented in the input element as well. So now there is a two-way binding between this input and the data, and it also updates the DOM. It's called reactivity. Now you can see it is pretty much fun. You can do things very simply in Vue.js. So vmodel is the view. As I told you, it's a view directive. It is kind of an HTML attribute, right? It is a special kind of attribute for Vue.js. So it can know to bind the passed variable into the DOM and the data. So it can have reactivity uh, built into this component. So now let's see how we can do conditional rendering. So there's another directive called weave. So you know that this is a if case, and you can add or remove elements from the DOM based on conditions you pass. This is very simple. So for example, in here, I want to show some message for the user if it is has more than 25 characters. So it's too long, so you don't need to add more than 24 characters. Let's see. In here, I just type something, and oops, and you can see now it is rendered in the DOM that it's too long, so you need to reduce it. So if I change this, now it's gone. It's removed from the DOM as well. So this is how you do conditional rendering in Vue.js. But there are certain situations where you need to keep the actual element in the DOM, but not to show it. You can use vshow. It is working like if, but it doesn't remove the element from the DOM. It just hides it with CSS. Okay, so now let's see how we can do loops. It is very simple. You can use another Vue.js directive called v4. And in here, I have defined some simple array called to-dos, and it has values like this. So it is very simple. This is like doing a loop in pretty much every programming language. I don't have to explain this, right? So in here, just it is referencing a single to-do in the loop, and you can just print it like this for the list. And this is the end result. It is like, I assume you already have this knowledge, so you can easily see it is just a simple follow. You do the same with other languages, and in Vue.js, it is very simple. You just define it in this template, and it does the thing for you. And also, this, if you add something to this to-dos, it will also re-render this list. So it is also reactive. And let's go for computed properties. This computed properties is something new, right? So you haven't heard it before, I guess. So like you see in your application, you work with data, but there are certain situations where you need to have to extract informations from the data. And for example, let's say you have first name and last name, and you want to store the complete name, the full name of the user. So in that situation, you can actually create a new data variable and add this first name and last name and show it in a template. But that is not like the right thing to do, right? But what if the first name changes? So you have to update the new data variable as well. So that's not going to work, and it's really ugly to do that because you already have the data you want and you just need to show it. So simply, you can simply show it using actually using string templates like in here. But you can see that it is not very good as well because your template can be get bit complex if you have many data variables to rely on to display something. So for that, Vue.js introduced something called computed properties. So these are acting like actual properties of your component. If you learn JavaScript, you will see that there are something called properties for JavaScript objects as well. And you can use existing data sources to create a computed property. So in here, just look at this. And in here, I already have a to-do list, the same one I use, and I want to get the completed one. See what are the completed items in this list, so I can show them in the application. So in here, I have created the computed property using computed keyword in here and adding this computed section into the application and creating completed function in here, which returns a filtered value from this array, and it is only taking these two, the ones who I have already done. And I'm displaying it right here. So let's see it in action. Okay, now you can see there are only two things displayed in here. To, if I change this to false, what will happen? Okay, now there is only one, right? So this is how you use computed properties. So you don't need to rewrite everything. So one thing in this computed properties is if your data changes somehow, it will automatically re-render the component so that can be reflected in your DOM. And it is also reducing the template complexity by a great deal. You can use computed properties to create meaningful names and use them reactively in your application, reducing the overall complexity. So anyone can easily learn and know what is happening actually in your application without looking at all the logic, right? So this is a pretty cool thing. So, and let's talk about attribute bindings also. So often in your applications, there are certain situations that you want to change something in the DOM. For example, you will need to disable a create item button if user is not logged in. So there should be a way to tell the browser to disable something in the DOM. So this is actually, if you use the button, there is a property called disabled, which actually disable the button for user. So you can use that to achieve the functionality. So in Vue.js, you can actually bind these attributes for the data you have, data of computed properties, uh, easily, like you do it previously, like in jQuery or something like that. But it is very intuitive. In here, you can see I used a new keyword called vbind, which is trying to call this property called disabled on this button, which is an actually a HTML attribute. And I am actually referencing this disabled in the data. So let's see it in action first. Okay, now there are two buttons. If I try on this, you can see this button is no longer available for user. So if I try this again, now you can see I can click on it. So this is actually changing these disabled properties as we trying on this button. So in here, you can see I'm changing this disabled property. I'm actually inverting it. This is initially false, and it actually automatically updates the DOM as well. So these attribute bindings are also reactive. So in this example, you see that we reduce many things, like we didn't try we on and we use at instead of that, and same as that you can use we bind like this as well. So you don't need to write it almost every time. And let's talk about style bindings. So you see that now we can actually bind some proper HTML attribute into our reactivity system. So like the same, you will often want to show add or remove styles in dynamic situations. For example, let's say that in our previous in our incrementing the count example, we need to show some message to user that the count is too much. For example, in here, I created this. This is it is initially 0. And if I increment it, I want to show a red class in here showing the count is too high. So in here, I created a CSS, SCSS class called red in here, and I am conditionally trying to apply it. This is very simple. I'm actually passing an object in here. If this condition met, it will add this class into the dev element. So you already see that there is another existing one as well. What happened to that? So you see there is a round border in here, and can, can properly see it. Okay, now you see there's now you can see the round border. So this class is not changed at all. It is statically applied to this element, but this one is dynamically applied. So Vue know to merge these static ones as well. So you can even use arrays or strings, whatever you like, to bind a dynamic uh, class in HTML element. So same rule also applies for styles as well. So it is the same. You just need to use styles in here. So now let's talk about components. In Angular, you talk a lot about components. It is same in Vue. In Vue, you already see this large app object. This is actually an application instance when we use with Vue create app. But you already feel that writing everything inside this large object, it is not scalable. You can't actually see what's going on. So for that, Vue has something called components. So you don't have to handle everything in a single view instance. So these components are actually like another view instance. So you can maintain a separate state inside that, and you can also try to communicate with other components as well. So what you need to do is you need to break your logic into components, and these components can be self-contained. It has its own logic maintaining that, and you can make them more reusable across your application, so you don't have to write over and over again. So this is a simple example. This is a profile uh, element I need to show. It has a a class and two properties, which is the name and the age. So let's see that your design team try to come up with a nice profile component like this. So you first draft it with HTML, and the thing is that this is not very scalable. What if we have multiple users? How we need to show them? So you will first say we can actually use v4 in here and loop over users and show them, but it is not also very flexible. What if you want to use the same thing in another page as well? You need to copy the code and use it there, but it's not very nice. So we can refactor this into a simple component. In here, this you can see now I have created a new application, and in here I have defined a user with two properties, name and the age. And I am using the same thing, the view create app, and I am taking the result as the app. So this is a view instance, and we can use this to add new components into our application. So in here, I am defining an app component called profile, and I am passing a template in here, which is the same HTML you saw in the application. And in here, I am actually I have added a new property called pop. So you already know pop from React. This is the same thing that you pass data from your parent to child components in a one-way flow. So the in here you can see I have passed a user into this profile component from this parent component. So this is a one-way flow. So the profile can actually access the data passed from the parent and show display users. So this is the read-only thing. You can't change these past properties. So you can actually use them like computed properties in here. If we talk, if you remember the previous example, you saw the computed properties. It's like the same. So in here, I have also used this attribute binding in here. I didn't use vbind. So you can see I have used the shortcut in here using this symbol. And what if you want to pass data back to your parent? So for that, you can use events. Unfortunately, I have no time to discuss it. So let's see it in action first. So you can see now this profile is displayed like this, and it is working fine. If you change something, or if you want to change the profile, you can change the HTML in this template, and it will just change it for entire application. Okay, so now let's get a bit serious. Now, so far, we talk about the things we can uh, do importing Vue.js into your web page. But if you're gonna do a serious project, doing this is not very scalable. So Vue.js provides something called single file components. This is a bit different than Angular because in Angular you have separate files for styles and HTML and the logic. In Vue.js, it is combined into a single file. So in here, you can see there's a place to put your template, and it has a place to put your script, the JavaScript or whatever you like. You can configure it, and you also have a section for styles as well. In here, you see something new called scope. The scope means that the style defined inside these tags are only accessible for this function. It's not exposed for outside. So you have a great flexibility in here. So these files are ended with .vue extension, and they are very flexible. You can use any kind of JavaScript preprocessors like TypeScript, CoffeeScript, etc. And it scales well as well. You can see everything in a single place. You can see how things are related. So you don't have to look for files again and again. And it also supports CSS styles. As I mentioned, you can use CSS, less CSS, whatever you like. And it has a better template support. So now you can see the code highlighting also works in here. And it also allows you to have a great readability. You can see it in here because in previous example, it is not very readable when it scales. Also, you have separation of concerns. Now you have template, script, and styles separated in here. In previous examples, I didn't mention about styles for components, right? So this is covered in here. So now let's see a working example, a to-do app I created. This is the same thing previously you saw in the React application, but in Vue.js. Okay, so in here, I used the same thing. I imported create app from Vue.js, and I just mount it into this HTML tag in here. So, and in this app.vue, I have created a component called to-dos, which is defined in here. And I am registering the component, so you can access it in template. Now you see, I have registered it with the capital letter, but it is referenced in the template in a different way. This is how you actually reference HTML elements, right? You don't write capital uh, you don't write capital tag names. You usually write uh, simple ones. And now you can see Vue.js is actually transforming this component name into something we are familiar with HTML. So let's see the application. First, I can add some items in here. Okay, I have added 2 items in the list, and oh, you know that completing these 2 things is actually really hard if you are a fan of Lord of the Rings. So I will tick one of these, and you can see it is changing the style, and it's also updating the completed. So I think you already have, if you're familiar with the previous example, this is a computed property. I don't need to manage a separate variable for that. I can derive it from the existing data. And if I check this out, it is also updating the completed. And if I uncheck this, you can see it is also updating this as well. So let's see this to do code in here, the component. So I have added the input in here, and I'm using vmodel as we discussed to bind the data from user input to something in our component side for this one. And I am using event from user. When I press the enter button, I need to execute this method called add to do. It is defined in here. So in here, I'm just preventing adding the empty ones. For example, let's say you are, let's say, what happened? Okay, let's say you try to add this one. This is a completely empty string. It is useless. So you can't enter that. You see it right now. You can't enter it. And if you have the same one, it is pointless to add it again. So in here you can't add the same as well. So finally, if it is a new one, we can add it and add it as item to this array we may maintain in the application. And we are showing it with the for loop. In here you see something new called key, which is, I didn't explain that earlier. The key is like a attribute for Vue.js, which is telling how to render things. For example, if something changed for this element, Vue know to distinguish that element and only update that one in when it is changed in the DOM. So it is, if you're going to do some application, make sure you have key property if you going to change the elements in your array. So in here, I have added the checkbox, and for v model I have used to-do.done. So actually it is binding to this variable we are using, and it is changing that with v model, as I already explained in previous example. And it is adding a CSS class in here, which I have defined below to strike through this list item. So now you see it is pretty easy to create an application with Vue.js. It is very intuitive. You can actually see by just looking at the code what you are actually doing. You can you For example, this completed property, the from this completed one, you see that it is very intuitive. Once you see this, you know that you are getting the completed items and showing it in here. So it is very intuitive. That's what Vue.js does. You can create intuitive applications, and it is very easy to do that also. So what about the ecosystem? So far we talk about simple applications, but if you're going for complex application, you need to have components which are talking with each other. As I mentioned before, you can even use events, but it is parent child only. But what if you want two different components to communicate with each other without passing the events? It is not very good. You need to pass events from your child component to parent, and it is parent, and it's parent. It's not very good. So for that, you can use Wooks, which is a way to manage your state, and it's a single source of uh, truth. So you can change at one place and render it in many places in your application. For example, when a user logged in, you can store that in books, and you can change your application according to the requirements of your need without even talking with other components with events. You can just take the state from the books and just do your business logic. So for for Angular, you saw there is a way to add routes for your application to use, so you can change the pages. And Vue.js, you can also use Vue router, and you can have multiple pages, and you can navigate between your components which are actually acting as pages, and you can pass data as well, and the browser history is also maintained. There are like two major things in Vue.js, and there's much more. If you're going to have need complex applications, these things will definitely reach. So you can read about them in the documentation. And for tooling, it has a taillight tool and white. And if you're going to develop Vue.js application, you need to use Vue dev tools in your browser. So you can debug things very easily. You have Vue's Wooks integration and router integration as well. You can see events propagating, and you can do a lot of things with Vue.js there. And if you're gonna use VS Code, there's a amazing extension called Vito, which provides uh, code highlighting and code completion, and you can write Vue.js applications very easily. And about UI frameworks, there are Bootify, which has material components, and Bulma-based components, Bootstrap, and Element UI for desktop applications. There are much more. The Bootify is actually an advanced framework. It cares many things for you. You will see they have a really nice documentation as well. So if you're going to use material components in your application, Bootify is one of the major things you need to consider for your application. So as you see, the AngularJS is like a battery included framework, right? So Vue.js is so far only focused on a simple thing, just the rendering. But there's a framework called Nuxt.js, which is a similar framework for you saw a similar framework for React as well called Next. Nuxt is and fork of it for Vue.js, and it has an amazing tooling. It is very intuitive to create applications. You can create server-side rendering application and static websites and single-page applications without worrying about the tooling too much because Nux can handle it for you. And it has a modular system and it's very performant. It does so when you're creating application, it does this code splitting. So it will reduce your page sizes and load only what is needed, then it will load the other things the application wants in the background without blocking your initial rendering. And it has a great project structure. It has a well-maintained structure like Angular, but it also has the flexibility for the user to change that style for their purposes. For example, for your company, you might want to have changed that. And it has also file system based routing, which is very intuitive. You can see routes from your files, and it's very flexible and it scales really well. So this is the structure of a Nox project. There is assets folder which contains something like CSS files, so you can bind them together and create a single CSS file from your uh, small ones. And these are like unprocessed things like audio, etc. So you can keep all of them in here, and Noxt will process them for you. It can do it, and this component uh, these components will contains Vue.js components and layouts. For example, assume your application needs multiple layouts for login. You just need the blank page. So in the middle, you see the login. And for your application, you need a layout which contains a sidebar as well. So you can define multiple layouts in this folder and as view components and refers them in your pages to make your application really good. So in middlewares, you can create actually middleware for your uh, pages. So you can restrict access for certain pages if user is not logged in. You can use the middleware for that, and you can use them with pages. And you can create plugins as well. Plugins are special JavaScript files for Nuxt.js. For example, if you want to import an external library, you can import it as a plugin, so it can be accessed by any page in your application. And for static, you can put images, etc. And store is actually a Woox store where you can create state there, and Nux will take care of the rest. So if you're gonna create a complex application, Nuxt.js is I really tell you to uh, try out Nuxt.js. And now you know the basic of Vue.js. So actually, I talk about these advanced features in Vue.js. Now you actually know how to create an application from scratch and scale that as well. So where to go on next? You can read the documentation of Vue.js. It is one of the well-written documentation I have ever seen. So for example, In here you can see it is taking you as a beginner and walking you through all the basic stuff, and then you can go in depth, and it is nicely written, and you don't need anything else at all if you actually read in this. But if you want some videos, I recommend you to use watch lessons at View Mastery on View School, and of course YouTube, and you can learn much things there. And last thing is that you need to practice Vue.js, and you will know a lot about when you do practice with Vue.js creating simple applications, and then you can learn advanced stuff. And finally, if you want to learn cool stuff, you can reach this awesome Vue. The site contains libraries built with Vue.js, which fits into a application, and you can find many of them in a single place. And if you have any question about Vue.js, you can reach the Vue community in Discord and have a chat with them. Even the core team is there. They will also try to help you, even you are beginner. There are many people out there to help you. So don't be afraid. They are very friendly. You can ask anything in this chat, and you will get your reply back, even from code developer. So it's really great. And this is where you can reach me. You can reach me in my GitHub and my Twitter account, and you can reach me in my website as well. So thank you. That's all for this presentation. And one thing I need to tell you that I told you in the beginning that I am not a front end developer. I work mostly in backend. But Vue.js allows allowed me to be very good in front end as well. So, for example, the one thing we created very recently, a real-time patient monitoring system. Uh, I'll show you that. Okay, so this one we made this for this very recently, and we use Vue.js in that. For the when we were working on this project, there are me and my friend. We both were not content people. We were mostly working with low level things, and we were mostly dealing with backend. But my friend, who didn't have any experience in front end application, learned Vue.js very quickly, and even we created this uh, nice UI within very short time. We created, and it is actually working. So this is the power of Vue.js. So even you are a beginner, you can learn it and master it in very short time. It is designed to do that. So that is one of my experience with Vue.js, and I use it for my work as well. We have created a complex application with Vue.js very recently, and Vue have served us well. It is very intuitive, and newcomers can quickly adapt into project flow, and I feel it really good. Um, so finally, I will answer few questions you guys have for me. Okay, the first thing is uh, okay, first thing is what does the future of Vue looks like? So the future of Vue.js is actually, you can see the latest version, Vue 3, is really promising, and even major companies have started considering using Vue.js. It is new composition API, allows you to create really nice website with minimal effort, and it has this reactivity thing. The Vue.js team originally bounded the reactivity system into the framework, but in Vue 3, it is decoupled from the framework. So you can even use the Vue.js reactivity with even Angular or even React as well, even anything you like. So it is a really powerful thing. So the future of Vue.js is, I say, it is bright, and it will serve the purpose well. So in here, someone asked that we on click increment call in event directly in HTML. So So it's telling that instead of this, can we bind? Yeah, you can bind this in this. The thing is that if you bind this to a real DOM event, you need to manage that event as well, and your logic should contain the DOM uh, with this method. So Vue.js, this Vion will take care of everything about this. It is registering the event handler and it is managing the event handler. And when the component leaves the page, it will also remove the event handler as well. So you don't have to worry about anything. You just write your application logic there, and no, you don't need to worry about the DOM anymore. And why we just call the progressive framework, I already answered. It is like you can adapt it into your existing applications without much effort. You don't have to start all over again. You can just import it from a CDN and use it there. And its Vue.js is suitable for developing large enterprise applications. Absolutely. So you can see GitLab uses Vue.js for their front-end application, and it's an enterprise application used by many organizations now. So it is really suitable for developing large-scale enterprise applications. And is there any advantages of Vue or other frameworks? Certainly, now you see how Vue.js works. It's very simple to learn, and you can master it uh, with fewer effect, and it is has a really intuitive syntax. And I see these are key things from Vue.js side. And for over other framework, I say every framework has its own up and downs. So you need to select a correct framework for your application uh, by analyzing your problem and how you're going to solve it. So Vue.js is suiting for any kind of application you like, but you need to actually do that research by yourself. I For the advantages I mentioned, I think you already understood what are the advantages by looking at the presentation. And so I think I answered all the questions in here. If you have anything, you can add it in chat in or this application. So that's all, guys. Thank you, everyone, and good night.
Thank you very much, Kasun, for the invaluable knowledge you have shared this with us today. And I hope there's no more questions. As on our select series schedule, now it's time for a Q&A session, but it seems the whole session took more time than we planned. So we decided to conclude the session from here without the Q&A session. I know you all have a lot of questions to ask, but we promise to answer all the questions and publish them as soon as we possible. And also, our Sajitharan bro has informed that he has another session now, and he will not join with us for the Q&A session. So if you are having any questions for our speakers, still you can connect them through social media platforms. So here's the end of the first event as we form the first community of University of Sri Jayawardhanapur. Thank you very much for joining with us today, Sajitharan Senathurai, Danushka Chandana, and Kasun Vithanage. We are so proud to have you, such developers like you, with us. And thank you very much, everyone, for joining with us the select session today. Hope you guys will stay connected and give your maximum support like this for future sessions as well. So I'm going to conclude this session now. One thing to remember, the secret of getting ahead is getting started. See you all guys soon. Stay safe. Good night.